Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have put all of you on mute, so I'm surprised I can hear a voice. Let me just check that. Okay. This webinar will take advantage of the chat feature, which is on a dashboard. It should be on the right-hand side of your screen. I have posted a few comments there this morning letting you know that we were getting ready to start and that type of thing. That is a great place to post any questions that you may have during the presentation. We do have time at the end of the presentation for some questions, but and I will also respond to questions during the webinar. So this is Maine Downtown Center's first ever webinar. It is devoted to, it's one in a 4-part series devoted to the 4-point approach. And I am here in Augusta. This is Ann Ball, the program director of the Maine Downtown Center, and I'm here with Robert O'Brien, our program consultant who's working with me on all of our programs. So I'm going to get started, and for other people coming in, just join in, and we will hope that our technology works and that you all get something out of this. So thank you for coming this morning. So, all right, 1 second. Thank you for your patience. Just getting the PowerPoint going. There we go. So the first thing I would like to do is to thank our sponsors, the Maine Community Foundation and Bangor Savings Bank, who are sponsoring all of our programs in 2017. And as I said, this is the first ever webinar that we have done here at the Maine Downtown Center and the Maine Development Foundation. So we are excited to have everybody on board for this. It allows us to reach further into parts of Maine that we travel to when we can, but often the people can't travel to us. So this is a way to hopefully have a little bit broader reach. Today we are going to go over the 4-point approach, and specifically we are devoting it to the refreshed 4-point approach and specifically organization. So your organizations can take many forms, from a standalone nonprofit organization to a special assessment district or to a program housed in a municipality or existing community development entity. So regardless of the organization type, the focus is on really ensuring that all organizational resources, partners, funding, and volunteers are mobilized to effectively implement the refreshed 4-point approach and community transformation strategies, which we will talk about shortly. So as you know, a strong organization is really a foundation for a sustainable Main Street revitalization effort. And today we will talk about how to use the refresh 4-point approach in your organization. We will also go over some very standard best practices devoted to organizational management, including diverse stakeholders and volunteers and resources and work plans and things like that. So the content today really should be beneficial to everyone, those of you who are in our network communities or are doing other types of community development work in Maine, as well as our National Main Street communities. So why are we talking about this refresh? So the National Main Street Center is in the process of updating their 35-year-old 4-point approach. And as you may know, those 4 points are a solid framework, but they no longer feel it should be the primary focus of the work in the community. So we've always traditionally had, those of you that have been involved with Main Street for a while know that that 4-point approach of economic vitality, design, organization, and promotion, we've always kind of had the organization structured with those 4 committees. And this new approach really takes a little bit, it uses the same committees, but it will, as you will see as we get into the content, it will be adding a little bit more of kind of a unified way to look at that 4-point approach. So dive right in. As I believe most all of you know on the phone and on the webinar, Maine Development Foundation is where the home of the Maine Downtown Center is. And the Maine Development Foundation really drives sustainable long-term economic growth for Maine. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit membership organization that was founded in 1978. And the Maine Downtown Center serves as the coordinating program for the National Main Street Center. So every state has a coordinating program, and Maine's is housed at the Maine Development Foundation, which is really a wonderful synergy because Maine Development Foundation works on trusted data, leadership, workforce development, secondary education attainment, and a number of things that really play out in our downtown. So there's such a good synergy for the downtown center to be housed in an organization like the Maine Development Foundation. This is our map. It has our 2015 reinvestment statistics on it, but these, again, many of you on today's webinar are from these communities and more, but this really shows our 10 national main streets in the yellow stars, our 18 Maine Downtown Network communities, and then the blue triangles are our Making Headway communities, which is a community engagement process that is one of the tools in our toolbox for working with other communities. Our 2016 reinvestment statistics will be coming soon, but we will talk a little bit about data and kind of why your organization does need to do that. But it is all of that, new construction, new housing, new businesses, the number of volunteer hours. That's quite a statistic that in 13 years, our national main streets, this does not include our networks, accumulated 284,610 volunteer hours. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through. Some of these slides are have lots of words, so we will work to highlight the important things that I think you need on some of these slides. As I said, we're the state coordinator for the National Main Street Center, and I think that's really important to say. we offer downtown institutes, a downtown conference, and now we can say we are offering webinars. I do want to let you all know, after this webinar, all these slides will be made available to you. So don't feel you have to take notes or minutes or anything like that. The slides will be available. We will send you a link, and we will also be sending you a 5-question survey that will be quick so that we can better prepare ourselves for our other 3 webinars. So the one other thing on this list of things that we do, we have a passionate volunteer advisory council. This group met yesterday. There were 19 professionals in attendance from all walks of life related to downtown redevelopment, and it is a important group that guides me in our work at the Downtown Center and supports our main streets and our networks through all sorts of ways. So let me continue. So the Main Street program really began in 1977, and it really has grown into this comprehensive program for downtown revitalization. It is preservation-based economic development. So it is what all of our programs are grounded in. So let's dive in. So the Main Street 4-point approach I mentioned, again, it has typically been that our organizations have 4 committees that you see here, but now we're going to look at it in this refreshed mode. It's helpful to think of the refreshed Main Street approach really consisting of 3 tightly integrated steps that we haven't used before. One is community visioning and market analysis, which is really an input on your on the left side of this slide, and then transformational strategies, which is really implementing the vision, and then implementation and measurement, the outcomes, the things that we need to start tracking. So the refresh is really, it's not that different than what has been being done in the before, and I think that's the biggest thing I want you to take away. This should not twist you up. It should actually just kind of enhance the work you're doing. So the Main Street organizations really do need to reach broadly and strategically through the community to meet your mission, and you will see how that makes sense. That's something we've always been doing, but it is more important in this new methodology, as you will see. So the other big thing about the refreshed Main Street approach is it requires a culture of collaboration. So whether it's board members, committee members, and staff, all really looking out in the community to other organizations within your community that you can work together on projects or, you know, together collaborate. It's really more of a collaborative project process, and I think you will see that as we get into this as well. Okay. So the 3 tightly integrated components, as I said, community visioning and marketing understanding, I guess that should be market understanding, transformational strategies, and implementation and measurement outcomes. So what does all that language mean? So the community visioning process, it is a community-driven process, and it brings together diverse stakeholders in your community to talk about downtowns, provides a foundation for outlining the community's identity, expectations, ideals, and really, you know, it's a reflection of that community, and it's really rooted in a solid understanding of the market realities of that downtown district. So a community visioning process could be a community decides that they want to become a regional arts and culture hub, or they could decide our community vision is we want to be senior friendly. So the details of actually how to do this community visioning is going to be coming soon. We are waiting for more training tools from the National Main Street Center. but I envision that Maine will be doing some training on how to do community visioning. We have a lot of resources right here in Maine, both professional and otherwise, and I think I haven't quite figured out how we're going to do it, but we will be offering all of you more training on how to do community visioning. We've had some of our main streets just step right up and say, all right, we're doing it, and that is great. But some of the communities don't quite understand what to do. So it really is the community being involved and coming up with a vision for your Main Street district. So communities also need to develop transformation strategies. So they're going to really provide a sense of priorities and direction for the revitalization efforts. So if we look at, well, one thing is transformational strategies. I think the national recommends that each community come up with 2 or 3 strategies, and you can have short-term and long-term. And the strategies will align with that 4-point approach. So, for example, if we go back to the vision of we want to be an arts hub, a short-term strategy could be to develop a public mural program in your downtown, or engage local students as artists. And a long-term strategy could be to develop a form-based planning code to promote housing for arts and culture workers, or providing for live workspace without requiring special permits. So the work on the strategies will align with the 4 points, as I've said. So the 4 points aren't in silos. So a group of 12 people cannot do everything. You have to kind of divide and conquer. You still need work plans and leadership and priorities. That's all the stuff that really hasn't changed. So the role of committees is still very much the same that it has been in the past. The role really hasn't changed. You're still going to implement activities, and you're really going to work together to accomplish your goal, but you're always going to refer to, as the last line says, on referring to the vision and the transformational strategy. Okay. My slide is not advancing. Give me 1 second. Let's try again. All right. There we go. So the third component after the visioning and the transformational strategies is to implement and measure. And this is always kind of the fun part for our Main Street organizations, really to start to begin to show those results and visible results and changes in those downtowns, and to measure the success of them. So real changes, as you know, we already collect things like job counts and new buildings and things like that. But with devoted to, again, like the arts one, you will see the kind of things that you can measure as we go a step further here. So measuring, we always, as a best practice, standard best practice, is to use SMART objectives. If you're going to measure something, it should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. And that is a great way, whether you are talking about measuring how much funding you get, or you're talking about measuring how many people participate. These are just great best practices to keep in mind. We talked about the key statistics. I'm not going to go into that in more detail, other than to tell you this reporting of statistics is something that is done national, asks the state of Maine for these statistics from our Main Street and network communities. To date, the Main Street communities have been collecting this data quarterly. But at this moment, the Maine Downtown Center has a grant pending that will do some deeper training with our network communities, so that we can really refine what data needs to be collected what is the benefit of that? How can you use it? What kind of storytelling can you do with that data? It's a great way to show your value to your municipality or to business owners. So it's a tool that we would like to adapt for use in our network communities, while at the same time making the process improved for our Main Street community. So more to come on that. We will hopefully hear about that grant in May. So some of the materials that I have are really the basics of good organizational management. You know, how you go about doing this work. I feel like these are very standard principles, how you go about doing the Main Street approach. These are solid principles for success. They're comprehensive. And the one thing I always add to this slide is number 9, which I'd write it with that yellow highlighter, except it's hard to read. Number 9 is patience. I feel like the work we do in the downtowns is hard, and it takes time, and it requires patience. It's always worth it, but number 9 I would add would be patience. So some examples of integrating the refreshed 4-point approach. Let's go back to that example of becoming an art hub and the transformational strategy of a mural project downtown. So you really would take that mural project and you would integrate it into organization, design, promotion, and economic vitality. So for today, we are really just going to focus on organization. So what are the things you can do if this is what your downtown has decided? Well, you could elect artists and craftspeople to your board, and you could measure, you could have a goal of getting 1 or 2 new people on your board that represent that community. You can engage arts groups through collaborative efforts, and you could measure that by saying we want to engage 3 new arts organizations, and we are hoping to do 1 collaborative event, all sorts of ways to do it. This vision for this community, this arts hub vision, means that you are super creative, and this is your niche market. So again, I would say communities usually have 1 vision and then 2 to 3 transformational strategies. So I'm not going to talk about the promotion and economic vitality actual strategies, but I did just want you to see this. So let's go back to the other example, which was becoming a senior-friendly community, and perhaps your strategy was to create a downtown senior gathering place. So same idea here. How do you work with that in your organization? What do you need to do? Well, gosh, you need to elect retirees to your board and your committees and engage senior organizations in your collaborative efforts. And again, all through you can measure these things. Obviously, you're going to have a work plan and to build something in this case, or is it going to be something that is in an existing coffee shop or theater building or historical societies? There's many options for how you could do this in your community. And again, we won't focus on the promotion and economic vitality. So a lot of you are probably asking yourself or thinking to yourself, whoa, this is a lot, and where are we in this whole process? Are we starting over? Are we new at this, or are we underway with this? And this is just a good reminder that this type of organizational work is circular. It is not linear. So some of you are like, wow, we've never really worked with 4 committees, so we are starting new. We're going to start new with the vision, and we are forming. And other of you might be a little bit further along in storming or further along in norming and then performing. You're really actively functioning with your vision and your transformational strategies and your measurement. So it's just a reminder that you can come into this at different places. I also think with multiple transformational strategies, you could have someone starting a new one group committee, or you could have people who are further along at the same time. It doesn't mean everything is working in one of these circles. Another reminder of some good basic organizational content, and I'm going to put on my highlighter again, or I'm going to just use my cursor. Um, all of these are important, but again, dense slide, and I'm not going to go over it. I think one of the big things is overseeing the organization's finances and protecting its assets. But of course, all of them. You really need to engage the community. I can tell you that Main Street's boards of directors or committees in many towns, they are workers. They are not a board that attends a meeting, votes, and leaves. They are all active in committees. They are all very involved, and that is important. As you will see here, board members really often are workers. I would say all of them should be in the case of a Main Street program. They offer wisdom, wealth, and balance. And the worrier, I guess we all have one like that, but that's a way of checks and balances when working with a board. And board responsibilities, again, these are resources we have here at the Downtown Center, or Maine Association of Nonprofits does great trainings on board responsibilities, and I don't need to go through them in complete detail, but you know, serve on a committee. That again goes back to the Main Streets being the Main Street Board of Directors being workers and doers. So other things to think about: how are your new board members selected? What kind of orientation do you offer board members? Do you have a nominating committee? Do you have term limits? And how do you retain wisdom? So again, we have examples here of all of these board things, you know, whether it's an orientation packet from our Main Streets, or what is the term limits, what are the term limits, all information that we are willing to share with you. I think this is another best practice, really keeping the mission alive. Make discussing it a routine function at your board level, whether you do it once a year. My favorite on this list is developing an elevator speech that every board member is prepared to recite. When your board is out in the community and someone says, oh, you're on, you know, small town Main Street, what's that all about? You want your board member to be able to answer and say, well, let me tell you, small town Main Street works with the local businesses, we put on events, we try attracting and retaining new businesses to our downtown, oh, and we're involved with historic preservation and preserving our downtown. You just don't want them to be like, oh yeah, it's nice group of people. Good. You really want them to understand it. It's just very important to the sustainability of these organizations. So if you don't have an elevator speech, I recommend doing one. This is teamwork, all of this Main Street work. Everybody is in it together. Collective impact really is when organizations from different sectors agree to work together to solve a specific problem. There is a lot of work nationally being done on collective impact. I think in Maine, at least the project I've worked on, we have been working in this way through cross-sector relationships. Think about in your downtown, if you have every partner, collaborator, stakeholder, volunteer that you need to get your goal done. What do you need to engage more people? The number one problem is often that we have too much to do and not enough people. So sometimes it's important to really think about who else could be involved. Stakeholders are people or organizations that have a vested interest in your organization's success. And they really can help you succeed or fail. And here's a brain dump of those stakeholders. Really, you just have to think about everyone. And they may have an interest. I don't see Garden Club on here. We have some Main Streets that work with their garden club, and it's a great relationship. And you can really cultivate this group of stakeholders as part of a strategic planning process. Or if you're following the Refresh 4-point approach, you need to engage those stakeholders as part of that visioning process and the development of those transformational strategies. Here's a great sort of task, I guess, or exercise that you could do with your board or your committee, which is list your current stakeholders and then list of who you do need to engage. You know, spend 15 minutes on it. There's really, it's just a creative process, but all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh yeah, we never had thought of them. So it's really like a stakeholder exercise, and I think it's a great thing to do. Let's see, what are the values and goals and needs of your stakeholders as they relate to your organization? What do your stakeholders like about you? What do they think is appealing about you? How do their needs relate to yours? And how do they know about you? All questions to consider. And also things that your board members can do. I find it's really important to engage the board members or the committee members out in the community. And this is another one of those ways to do it. I just saw a business survey that Biddeford is using this morning. And they use it, not just an electronic survey monkey, but they actually go out and they have board members go out into the community once a year with the survey just to have like a quick 10 to 15 minute with a business owner. So I think you could do the same thing with stakeholders, and they ask them the questions about how's everything going? How's parking going? You know, you want to be open more hours? Are there enough businesses open at night to support you being open at night? And just really lots of you know, ways to engage your board and of course relate to those businesses and relate to stakeholders. So it's just a great tool. And I'm happy to share that survey if anybody wants it. We can send that to you after the webinar. So this is about trust, this slide. And I have worked for a large part of my career on kind of cross-sector relationships. So really getting to know people that aren't really my people and really working with them. And trust is a big part of it, and being a good listener, I would add. So this really is a slide that talks about how to work collaboratively and build trust with stakeholders in your Main Street. And I think you can see it's really kind of modeling desired behavior is the way it's written here. And this is yet another great exercise for your board. People are not going to engage with another organization unless they're trustworthy and professional. So look at yourself as like a two-way trusted collaborator. You know, go out into the community, go to the local hospital, and ask what they know about Main Street and test what people think of you. So this is another kind of just, again, engaging process to see what the public perception is and to start to build those relationships. So donor stakeholders, right? We haven't talked about them. How do you do that? Again, dense slide, but I'm going to jump to regularly report your results. I have found that working with donors, I originally used to think, oh, they don't want to hear from me. They're too busy, you know. But really, they want to hear from you. They want to know that they're what you're doing with their money and if their money is being wisely spent. And some of them do care about some of the measurable outcomes as well. And obviously, you know, showing your appreciation and making them realize it is a wise investment. And stay on target with all of this work, with your message out in the community. Trust each other. This is a little section on cooperation, coordination, and collaboration that really are three distinct approaches that work in different contexts. So cooperation really is shorter term, informal, and really is based around an exchange of tangible assets like office space or software, information and ideas, and coordination really means more of a formal relationship. And then finally, collaboration is really more of a formal relationship where there is some structure, a shared mission, possibly even a formal legal document like a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, or an LOA, a Letter of Understanding, something like that. Nonprofits collaborations are at an all-time high. Believe it or not, 91% of all nonprofits collaborate at one time. And you really are remiss if you think that you can do it alone. You've got to collaborate with municipality, your police, your parks, your recreation, your trail committees, your seniors, all those stakeholders we're talking about. Obviously, with not creeping from your mission, but you really do need to collaborate. It's the only way to survive in this world with our economic challenges and really the way to tackle some of these larger problems will require collaboration. Why do you collaborate? This is a great shot of downtown Skowhegan's Brew Fest. To boost organizational efficiency, effectiveness, and drive broader social and systems change. True collaboration, again, it may require something formal like a jointly developed structure of some sorts or a mutual authority. I mean, if you get into a more complex relationship like Healthy Main Streets, which I'll talk about briefly, you really do need to think through a lot of detail on these collaborations. Some of these great examples of collaboration here in Maine: theater restoration project, an art walk, these are not things that happen just with the Main Streets. And we have one of our advisory council members, Bill King, in the upper left-hand corner. And then the Gannett building over on the right is University of Maine at Augusta, who chose to locate downtown. They weren't sure they wanted it, and then the Main Street organization worked with UMaine and said, you do want to be downtown. This is where you want to be, and here's why. And so they were able to do it. Walking tours like the one I guess in the middle there with our former program director Roxanne Eflin is a great way to work with your Chamber of Commerce, or in this case it's a lot of kids, so I don't know if it's a school, but anyway, there's lots of ways to work with those partners from simple to more complex. And this is the Masonic Hall, also in downtown Augusta, and a great success story of collaboration. So this building had never been open to non-Masons. The Main Street program cleaned it, made it possible to open it and have lunch on the 3rd floor. They now have a certified kitchen. It is clearly an asset in downtown Augusta. And this is really your job. You need to look at every asset in your downtown and think about it. I thought recently of the bridge dinner that used to be held in Belfast. I don't think they're having it this year. But who ever knew that you could have a dinner party on a bridge in your community? It's probably one of the most creative collaborations I've seen. So I'm sorry, my computer says we may have degraded audio quality. So I'm hoping that you can all still hear me. Oh, I just got a note. Eric Klausmeyer from Our Town Belfast says you are having it this year. I'm so glad to hear that, Eric, that's the bridge dinner in Belfast, because it is a really unique program to have in a downtown, and I'm so glad to hear that, because that wasn't the last news I heard. That is good news, Eric. And Brooke, thank you for telling me that you can hear me. So let's see. Engage with the people that are working in your downtown. My gosh, here's a great picture. We have a project going on in a downtown. Go meet who's working on it. See what they're doing. Bring your Main Street Board of Directors you know, over to see what they're doing on that window restoration project. It's National Preservation Month in May, right? So all sorts of things you can do. Healthy Main Streets was a unique collaboration. It was the first of its kind in the country where Maine Development Foundation, an economic development organization, applied for federal funding to the CDC, the federal CDC, to make the case that health and wellness relate to economic development. We partnered the Maine Downtown Center with MDC Public Health, and we applied together. We had a formal contractual relationship for how the finances were going to work, how the staffing was going to work. This was a large multi-year grant, but it was so exciting to learn each other's languages and impart that knowledge on our main streets. The program lives on. It was originally in 19 communities, and I would say most of our communities have it going in some form. It's not as formal as it was when we developed it, but it is really an amazing program that really was all about collaboration and couldn't have been done any other way. And now our downtowns all kind of get that, oh, walkable, bikeable, trail connectivity, and our businesses, like making sure that their employees are getting health breaks and taking a walk for 5 minutes. Halcyon of Halcyon Yarns and Bath said it best. She said, I can't afford to give anybody health insurance, but I can actually give them 15 minutes to go out and take a walk. And so it really is a lot of education in that area, but it was all about collaboration. I was not a public health person. I'm a historic preservation person, and I was lucky enough to get to direct this program and had to learn an entirely new language, but it really was amazing. Okay, briefly, work plans. You cannot abandon the work plan. That is something that has not changed. This is a good practice. Some of the top reasons, improving the success rate and the benchmarks for success. You've got to have work plans at your committees, and 7 essential goals or I'm sorry, components of a work plan are also key. So all best practices when you're looking at resources. I'm just going to check the time. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through some additional need-to-know resources, best practices related to organization. These are standard things that are not different because of the refresh, but things you do need to think about. And once again, you'll have access to all these slides. They're dense, and I'm not going to go through them all. Things like bylaws. We have sample bylaws here. And, you know, the collaboration, board recruitment, all these kind of things are really basic good governance. Solid leadership. Our main streets will not survive without good leadership. It is absolutely critical that you not only have a leader in place, but that you have a succession plan. So when that leader decides they don't want to do it anymore, they retire, they've termed out, you have someone in line to do it next. So leadership and leadership development and succession plans are key. Basics of having good meetings. I think people that know me, excuse me, know that I really try hard to start and end on time. I try to have an agenda. These are basic practices, but all things that we can be reminded of. Running a good meeting. Staff as partner and team support. This really relates to those of you that have staff in your Main Street organization. Not everybody does. And it's really talking about the relationship between, you know, managing the volunteers and how you work with committees and things like that. This looks like an overwhelming form, but I'm going to throw it out there because this is a way to track volunteer hours. It's good practice. And if you are applying for funding, I don't think you have to have it in the sick and the vacation and all that stuff. But I have a thing here in my office, a clipboard, which really has the name, the date, the number of hours, and the project or purpose. And basically, if I have volunteers that I'm meeting with, or like my advisory council yesterday, I just have the name and what they did and how many hours. That way, when I go to a grant maker, I can say, well, this is how many hours we've devoted to that initiative with all volunteer labor at this point, or this is how many volunteer hours it takes to run our organization. So all important to think about. Conflict resolution. I just think you need, as an organization, to plan for it. You need to be able to manage it if it happens. So unnecessary and unresolved conflicts will diminish the success of the organization. So it's important to have a plan in place for conflict, or whether, gosh, it could be related to preservation. I believe this particular case study on the right with the fire was a case where the fire marshal may have deemed that the building needed to come down, but the preservationists really wanted to have a second opinion. So you need to have ways to plan for dealing with this type of conflict. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for organizations to be the advocate that you need to be, but if you are part of the Main Street or Network program, you are a preservation advocate. And styles of conflict, avoiding it. I admit personally sometimes I do that. Giving in, standing your ground, compromising, and once again we go back to collaboration. I am just going to bypass this slide because I want to make sure that we have time for you all to start thinking about questions that you may have. So stay in the game, don't give up. We're just trying our best to improve our community and quality of life. One historic legacy at a time. So if not us, then who's going to do it? And if not now, then when? The work is hard. This is, as I said, it takes patience and time. This is such a great quote by Winston Churchill, that we shape our buildings and afterwards our buildings shape us. So believe in the power of place. It's the legacy we leave for our futures. This is a great slide from Waterville. Why we do what we do, the people, the places, the heritage, the legacy. It is heart work in addition to being hard work. Be a leader and a role model. Know that you are an invaluable asset to your entire community. And of course, have fun. So when we put it all together, this is a beautiful slide of downtown Norway. What do we get? Economic reinvestment, jobs, recycled buildings, cultural centers, quality of life, quality of place, community pride. I was talking to Robert this morning about why do communities have parades? Like, what's the point of a parade? And I just really believe a lot of it is about community pride. Health, walkable communities. So that's really what this work is all about. This is a publication. It was the first time that our National Main Street Center put out this publication. It was called The State of Maine, and it is going to be an annual publication. And it really serves not only as an annual report, but as an industry journal. And it really provides a detailed look back on all that we have accomplished over the past year, as well as a platform to explore new ideas and trends in a commercial district revitalization downtown. So I highly recommend you can download it at the National Main Street Center. It really is inspiring. So as a reminder, we have 3 more webinars that will focus on design, promotion, and economic vitality in the new Refresh 4-point approach. What I'd like to do is, if you all look over on your chat feature, type in questions, let us know what we can answer. And I would go ahead and start typing. We have to do it that way because I can't open up the phone line to 18 of you. It would be a little hard. Anybody typing? So we'll give it a couple minutes. And we definitely don't have all the answers to all the questions of the refresh. But on Saturday, along with 22 other people from Maine, I will be heading to the National Main Street Conference, which this year is being held in Pittsburgh. And we have all of our 9 of our main streets and 3 of our network communities represented, which is very exciting. And we will be learning more about the refresh. So let me see if there a question there? Robert, can you come back in here? I think it'll work better if Robert's here reading the questions to me, because we do have one, so hold on one second. Okay. Main Street Bucksport is just about to form our 4 committees. Would you advise we wait and create a vision and transformational strategy first? We already have a mission statement. That is a great question, Brooke, and I think a lot of communities are probably in that same boat. I am not sure what the answer is to that question. I'm going to think about it, and I will be checking at National on we have meetings with all the other statewide coordinators, and I am going to get back in touch with you specifically, Brooke, but I will also share that information with everyone who is on the webinar, because I think that is like whether it's a cart before the horse thing. So thank you for asking that. It seems that the visioning might be the next step and getting together all of those partially identified communities and stakeholders. That way, when your committees are formed, they will have a better idea of what they're going to be working on. Related, they may say, oh my gosh, I really want to work on that effort. So I think that's where I'm leaning, but I would like to check with my national counterparts and see what else they are recommending. Do we have any other questions? Gordon Page says, start building your army now. I agree with Gordon, Jane Palmer says. And also, not only is being part of your local Main Street rewarding, but it's also great fun. Thank you, Jane. This is great. Anybody else typing in? We'll wait a couple more minutes before I end the webinar because I don't want to cut anyone off. And Brooke said, does everyone see these, Robert? Or is it only me seeing these? Okay. So yes, congratulations to Brooke Minner, who is the brand new employee of Bucksport Main Street program, which we are so excited. Having staff or a part-time staff is a pretty amazing way to get a lot of work done in those network communities. Okay. Okay, anybody else? Are we ready to? Okay, that's great. All right, I think we are just about done. If anyone has follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. I look forward to seeing many of you on the next webinar, and I hope that today's was informative and not too overwhelming. So you'll be getting an email from us with a link to the slides as well as a small 5-question survey. Thank you all very much for joining in our first webinar.